Hi, my name is Christopher, and I'm going to be the negative construction against Mr. Coates' affirmative for develop the moon. Now, Mr. Coates' affirmative does prove good points, but I did find some faults in this case. Now, the first fault being in advantage 1, which is the mining and extraction of helium-3 from the moon. Now, when it comes to the amounts of helium-3 on the moon, is the 1 million tons, as Mr. Coates stated, a sufficient amount to set forth numerous expeditions? I mean, how long is that amount to last us? And what are we to do after that amount is depleted? Now, scientists state that the gases around Jupiter are said to have an overabundance of helium-3, but that's Jupiter. That is millions and millions of light years away and would take us a lifetime to get there. So that seems to be out of the question. But I guess I should begin to attack the notion of how expensive these expeditions to the moon are going to be. As my opponent said, these expeditions, or the launches that happen from Earth, are exuberantly demanding and expensive. So that raises the question as to how many missions to the moon are we exactly going to take to acquire this helium-3? And how long are these missions to take? I mean, these missions could take 5, 10, 15, even 20 years. How is our energy supply, or reserves for that fact, to look like during that time? I mean, could we have possibly found an alternative to helium-3, or developed technologies that revolve around the fact that our helium-3 reserves are depleted? We could have come up with a completely different renewable source of energy in the time that it takes to reach the moon, mine helium-3, and bring it back. Now that brings up another point on the fact that, are we even allowed to mine the moon? Now the space treaty states that the moon does not belong to a certain nation. So when it comes to the U.S. send forth expeditions to the moon, are we exactly allowed to do that? Do we have the rights to physically deform the moon in search of an energy, a supply to help us? Are we exactly going to be sharing that energy or keeping it just for ourselves? Because if we choose to keep it to ourselves, that's going to raise a lot of issues when it comes to, global energy supplies. Now, the fact that my opponent said that these launches from Earth are exuberantly demanding brings forth my disadvantage, which I call the environment. Now, subpoint A, our space shuttles use a special chemical propulsion system to launch. Now, this system uses an excessive amount of liquid nitrogen along with other elements, according to a post NASA published in August of 2000. Now, subpoint B, the mission would most likely take a numerous amount of launches to the moon and back in order to bring back the helium-3 that is on the moon. Now, subpoint C, with all of these missions and trips taking place, NASA is going to use up an immense amount of chemical elements, most likely depleting the Earth of certain chemical elements that are found here on Earth. Not to mention the effects that the propulsions are going to have on our environment. Now, subpoint D, in turn, all these repetitive missions are only going to be harming our environment being the atmosphere and our ozone layer. Now, another fault I found was an advantage 2, which is the colonization of the moon. I feel as if the colonization of the moon falls under more civilian development, which takes away from the resolution, which I believe falls more under industrial development. And because it takes away from that resolution completely, I feel as if my opponent has lost that point entirely, because he fails to recognize the resolution and apply certain facts to it. So with losing that point, I feel as if I gain that upper hand. And with that, I finish my negative construction.